These are that one, eh?
Obviously, the landforms are going to be quite unexpected. Take a bit of digesting. I haven't seen it before. It is comparatively straightforward to put down a good topographical rendition of what's there, but then landscape has much more to offer than just prettiness or attractiveness. It's got to have some sort of quality, almost a primeval force.
People have an idea that when you go to Fiordland, you will do the landscape. But they don't often realise that people carry the books and research in their minds. You've got all this visual history related to it, all the pictures that have been done about it, you know, to mix in what you see, what's actually there with imagination and research. And then it becomes a much wider thing.
I've got this strange thing where I do my best not to go anywhere with great expectations, and I just like to swallow it as much as I can and let it all come out in its own way.
Regulars keep going.
No, I love the idea that there's not a lot of human history down there, and it's all up for grabs in a lot of ways. I mean, Maori trundle around there from time to time. And there's always the lost tribe that could be conjured up.
Yeah. It's doubtful that there's anything down there. So I like puns.
That's the thing about, you know, today. There's so much photography. You don't have to go anywhere really. I mean, you can look it up on the internet, or you can get books.
Yes, but that's not true. You don't really feel it till you go there. You only think you've felt it from the photographs.
Yes. Welcome to Doubtful Sound on the Pembroke. Well done, Pat. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good effort.
Yes.
That's what we call the Hillary step, that one. In reverse. Yep. Good effort.
Where does it all go?
We'll take it all down to the back, all that stuff there. I'll look after that, and I'll just get the everyone's personal bags down into their cabins.
Yeah, I know. Oh, no, this one, no, I want to go to the top of that.
Nigel,
Foolishness. A couple of asses going up there.
not a couple of you.
and then a bit blood-curdling cry.
We're down here at Deep Cove, and then tomorrow afternoon is when we're going to come out of the heads here, and then come down here to Dusky, which will be about 4 or 5 hours, depending on the weather.
There's a very rich embroidery of trees there.
You just got to look for a while, even before you start drawing, really, to get that feel again. And the way the vegetation changes just at the shoreline, all that needs reprogramming into your head, really.
Well, I go there. That's the first thing. I go there and I just soak it all up. I'm not really, I think you'd be very lucky to get sketches out of me. I don't really like doing that sort of thing. I'll take lots of photos and I'll pinch everyone else's photos and anything else I can find, and I'll just have it all up around me. it's just so massive that, you know, you can look over it and miss so much. I mean, the bigger picture is gorgeous enough, but you can fall into just little nooks and crannies and get the way the bush moves across this incredible rocky, teethy thing. I don't know, it's all just going to stack up in the big library, and I'll just draw upon all of it or parts of it and make works later on. These are all on modern day sketch pads.
I prefer to work quite quickly because the boat's moving quite often, so I sort of size up the colours and the tones as quickly as possible and put them down quickly and hope that I'm going to do it, hit the right colours. Monet, for instance, he can get things down quickly to the point. And while this is not impressionism that I'm after, but the same sort of immediate reaction. I'm not interested so much in sort of coming up with some saccharine solution to something. I want to get to the guts of it.
Safe and sound for the night. Good.
I mean, I remember the days of Hanley slinging off at the Needham Art Gallery because the woman cleaned the paintings with vim, you know. Sort of those days, you know, they're sort of ignorant. But I mean, these days it's still...
Most people feel very comfortable in a landscape that we have some control over it, so we sort of domesticate it. Maybe that's the difference. This is not a domesticated landscape. There's nothing that comes in between you and the landscape. It has to have something, I don't know how to explain it. There's something magical. There's some magic in what you're looking at. And I don't want to document every tree in every place so people can recognise and feel, oh, that's good, I know where I am. It's more to do with losing yourself into a place. If you describe everything, it leaves nothing to the imagination. And I think what I'm interested in painting, it leaves something for the person to be contributing to it and trying to imagine what it feels like to be there. And Fiordland it's a feeling of silence, and I'm actually quite deaf, so it's actually quite interesting because the silence has got another sense, and I think that it comes out in my paintings.
We're just coming out of Doubtful Sound at the moment. We're about 20 minutes away from the heads, and we're going to go out there, turn left, and head on down to Dusky Sound. There's nothing between here and Antarctica. Just a few days back, you know, there's 50, 60 knots. You know, it can just change overnight to that, so you've always got to be aware of that. So we're always a wee bit jittery at this point coming out, but pretty sure today we'll stick our nose out, have a look, and I think we'll be pretty happy with what we'll be looking at.
Well, I've always been attached to the sea. When I was growing up in Tolaga Bay, it was, you know, I was always out fishing or diving or surfing. And then when I was trying to eke out a living as an artist, I always had to have other jobs to supplement my income, and fishing was a big part of that. And the toil of being on a boat is a big memory, and it's all part of my bones as well. Well, like any seaman, I'm always, you know, watching the swell direction and the weather and these can openers. I was always one of those kids that could draw. I mean, as a little kid, I could sit down in front of my family or anyone who came and I could sketch them and it would look like them. I could do that. There's a whole lot of other things. I'm left-handed, I'm the youngest of the family, I'm dyslexic. All of these things have added up to me pursuing what I can do with my hands and my particular vision. I've had many other jobs, but I've always just come back to it. It's the thing that I do best, and I've always felt that that's where I sit. I can do this. I can swim in that ocean, and I can be relevant. And so this is me. I love it here. I'm still here, and I don't want to do many other things.
We've gone from dead flat calm to these are probably 3 meters in about 25, 30 minutes. Comes in relatively quickly and without too much interference, and it tends to build up. You've just got to talk to the fishermen who spend a lot of time out here. I know some of the ones I've spoken to said they go from tranquility to terror in about 15 minutes, and that's their job, and they're used to it. So it's how much bigger they ever go is always like the shoulda, coulda, or woulda question, but in the meantime, we're not travelling too badly, so.
Who is this Hodges, I ask you? Who is he? Have you seen an exhibition of his lately? No, I haven't.
Well, it's a lot calmer than it is today.
Yeah.
He must have gotten in a little bit further here or something, because this is ending. Oh yeah, might be about here. It looks like it was done in the morning. Do you think this is the light is coming from there? Because it's bright on the water.
Yeah,
might have been in the morning.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah. And the light spilling down those passageways between islands is nice, isn't it?
It is. It's gorgeous.
He was of his time. And he was employed as a flashy number to to go on this, and he was given a bit of license to do his own thing.
It was his job. That was his job on board.
Job lot too.
He was only in his 20s, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he was a young man.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah. Cook said, "Go hither, boy, paint that." But what I get from this is that they were 100 years away from an idea of a camera. So the whole idea of painting these was recording in a way that we've lost that idea. And we paint it for other reasons now.
The very name Dusky, I mean, that's for a start is a name that is perfectly in tune with Hodges' paintings, that dusky glow and that dusky view of history that we have. The whole idea of Fiordland being captured and possessed by Hodges is quite interesting. That Hodges, this person who's nothing to do with New Zealanders now, has set the main images for it, you know, in the beginning. Boat's turning out to be pretty quick here. Good drying wind, it'll dry it all out, makes things easier. I'm wanting to, you know, at least have painted you'd call it a painting sketch really, than a painting in the sense that it's properly resolved. Within the constraints of the boat, you're trying to do something that gives you a live action painting, a plein air painting is the term, and there's nothing quite like being on the spot to challenge an artist, and it shows in the work, you know. All I've done is put the two names associated with this place, Astronomer's Point and Pickersgill Harbour, because as an artist I'm interested in the meaning of it all, and all these words hold meaning. Astronomer's Point is intriguing and special to activities that went on. It contains the whole history of what happened there with Cook. A simple little figure about to get on a boat, and I think there's some washing hanging on a line somewhere. And there's a bit of sort of relief from the bush with things like the tent gives a bit of white, and the man's clothing, and the branch. The branch intrigued me, that rata branch.
I'll just hold it here, then if I just step off the front of the boat here.
RNZ
Hydrographic survey.
Hydrographic Survey.
The significance this is as close as what they think they can get to where Cook and the crew had their instruments.
Yeah.
In 1773, when they came here on the second voyage to map the path of Venus coming over New Zealand. Yeah. It was 240 years ago, pretty much, this was all cleared. And you can still see some of the stumps, like this here, and here would have been an original stump from the trees that were cut.
Yeah.
There's another one there.
Yeah.
These ones over here, these would have been probably the bigger trees that got taken down, so they had a clear view of the sky.
And that's fantastic.
Where else can you go and see mossy stumps up in the bush of the trees that they actually cut down, and the environment looking very similar to what they would have seen? And you feel the history. What it is you come here and you feel in touch with the early beginnings of Pākehā here, you know. You get that sense of history, and there's quite a lot of places in New Zealand, it's so developed that you just lose all consciousness that there's been a previous generation or two, you know. Hodges would have used light much more skillfully than I do, in the sense that he would have had his little patches in there, you know, to draw the eye in. He was a specialist in that, drawing the eye into these places. So if he wanted you to go in there, he'd put a white patch in there. Maybe I should do that sort of thing. He wouldn't have put words like that. He would have said, "What the hell is that doing there?" Get rid of those big chunky words, he would have said.
And there's a step right here.
Steve! I won't hold you, I'll hold the rod. A still life of girder with cod. Keep an eye out there, Pat. You should see some trout maybe in the shallows.
Extraordinary.
Beautiful down there.
The whole thing sort of, you know, shouts of silence. That's the thing. I mean, the bush and the water itself, everything's so damn quiet. And to come out here and sort of find yourself thrust back on your own imagination, rather difficult.
Hodges did document something really important and interesting, which has allowed a whole lot of discussion and research. But, you know, it had nothing in the painting that actually told you of their lives, really. You know, it was first contact. It was what this artist from, you know, fresh out of England, with all of his understanding of how to paint and how to present people, he put that onto this little family of people in Dusky Sound. Wow. Swimming. What they were, these holes way up here on this ridge. Storage pits, maybe. I can't imagine you'd want to have your cooking fires way up on the top here. Or maybe you would. Get a good view. Afternoon barbie. The accounts you read are varying. They could have been Mamoi who were being pursued, or they could have been Ngāi Tahu who were doing the pursuing. They were just people who were here. The little boat harbour down there was just a perfect little boat harbour, but you know, if your enemy came around the corner, you'd be stuck there. You couldn't get your waka out of there. You'd have to be pretty alert, watching for signs of shipping from up here. But this is sort of like, there's a real sense of presence coming to these sites. Especially with them connected with Cook so strongly, that you know, you get this feeling of this first contact. It's very crisp. It's nice. I shouldn't be in the oven any longer. I might get cooked. That's what it was.
It would take a little bit of painting. I never shot at it.
Way.
I like the flow of the water. In Coleridge's poem, of the Ancient Mariner. It said, "And some in dreams assured were of the spirit that plagued us so. 9 fathoms deep he had followed us from the land of mist and snow."
You still there, Hodges?
We were going to see a waterfall that was purportedly the Cascade, right, that occurs in Hodges' work. There's always that thing when people go there, they want to see exactly what's in the paintings. It's like a kind of jigsaw puzzle. But that's, you know, it's a human preoccupation to be accurate, find the accuracies in it. But the original paintings defeat that a bit because they're not accurate. It's not what they're about. Something soothing to human beings about a fall of water falling through the air, down over a wet rock face into a pool. And it creates a lovely energy in the pool, this water falling into it.
Amazing.
Well, it's a lot higher up than in some of his pictures, but I mean, Hodges manipulated things terribly. He would have manipulated the size of the waterfall to his composition. The standard paintings of the Maori family standing with the rainbow and the waterfall, you don't have the feeling that they're a real Maori family. There's some abstract projection onto them of a classical Greek family dressed in dogskins or cloaks or whatever. Mum, Dad and the kids, you know, on a rock in paradise. People over in England didn't know much about New Zealand. They had no idea what had been seen, and so they tended to do it in a bit of a classical model. They had no great Pacific consciousness, so it all got mixed up with ideas of Adam and Eve and classical heroes and you know, racial superiority theories and you name it. You're really talking about romantic idea of waterfalls, that waterfalls are symbols of freshness, vitality and light and poetry flowing through a dark landscape. That's all through McCann, that, you know, light shall bring something into the darkness, you know.
I'm aware of Hodges' work, and I quite like the drama, but I don't like all the tradition he came from. It's actually very pictorial, so I don't really connect it. But I know that Hodges inspired McCann, so I quite like McCann's work. And I think he was inspired by Hodges, because particularly the painting of the waterfall. But it's to do with the dark and light thing, not so much of the narrative, but with the abstract qualities that he saw, more biblical qualities.
So it's amazing when you look at that. Like, you know, you started with your orangey brown background because When I always think of Fiordland, I always think of it's just green.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just shades of green and nothing else. But
Yeah.
But you've obviously see different colours than I do.
Yeah. It's a parallel work to nature rather than a reproduction of nature, exactly. They would have appreciated the little romantic hole at the top, you know, because they're into those sorts of things, natural arches and things like that.
Well, Hodges' legacy is he was there. He was the one that largely dominated. He went back and he painted these big paintings, and they are the big works of the time. We're stuck with those in a way. We can't undo that except critically. And the nice thing about writers and painters and things, they can take something that is a legacy and they can revitalise it, seen in a fresh way. There is room now for, you know, contemporary painters, not only Pākehā, but Indigenous people to unravel these things.
We all stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. And even if one disagrees strongly with an interpretation, at least it has been made. Of course, they came out of the age of Romanticism, and they were believing in the perfectibility of mankind and perfectibility of just about everything. But nonetheless, we are victims of our age as much as Hodges and his age were.
It's totally different to what we're expecting. We've got all this, you know, cold, wet weather gear, and walking around in like a more summery than in Wellington.
Yeah, I used to take my coat off. Yeah, it's been incredibly hot. Every time I've been here, it's been sort of wet and dense and more closed in, you know, and I have to change my view of it now today. In the last few days, it's been amazing. I had assumed that it was going to be very misty and rainy, and I was going to get interesting sort of different shapes, and I realised that I had to look for something different instead of looking at how the mist transformed mountain forms. This time I had to look at what light was doing, because it was sunlight. So I had to look at light and shade and look at where it was dark and where it was light. So the contrast is greater, but the intensity of the colour, I just brought, this time I've actually brought more colour into the work.
There's a certain tinge of regret at having to leave it all, I must admit. It's a compellingly beautiful place.
Somehow I want to get those faces where they just carry on down into the ocean. I want to get all of that underneath as well. Those massive crayfish, blue cod. Yeah, the mussels, my God, the mussels. And the big seals just cruising up to see what you're doing.
When you leave Fiordland, it's like, on a certain level, you've escaped. Yeah, you look back and you forget about the crayfish and things, all of it, and you kind of look at your, your computerized images, and then the real journey begins back in there again, you know, which is a journey into your mind and the minds of people that have been there before.
It's quite a scary experience, you know, like the whole process is a discovery process to see if it will work.
You've got to skirt round the subject. But before you find the waterfall, you've got to walk in the bush a bit and see it from different angles and look at the paintings that have been done already, and then you might arrive at something, maybe, if you're fortunate enough.
No, I don't sketch. I don't like that. I mean, I figure the way I paint anyway is very sketchy. It all evolves on that surface, and sometimes the strokes and marks that you make as you're sketching are some of the strokes that you want to have there at the end.
But then I lay out a painting, paint in the main shapes and sort of dark and light, and then I do layers and layers on top of that, and it's actually that takes quite a lot of, I think, years and experience to use thin layers of paint, so the previous layers show through. So I'm looking for abstract forms and a translucency that creates another sense and another dimension, really.
Whatever data that I am working from, there is the translation of what that is onto what I want it to be. In short, I'm imposing my personality, if you like, on the material I've got so as I can represent it on the finished canvas.
The twilight is the area that I dwell in. And to me, that's where a lot of the interesting things happen anyway. You get odd shadows and people do odd things in that time. I like it in there. It's things coming out of the dark or moving through. It's all good to me.
Turning things around the other way sort of disorientates you from habitual painting, like it's going to the same thing and doing the same thing again and again and again. If you turn it upside down, you're destroying your perception of what you think you're doing, you know. And also, often, if things are not working right, I just wipe out a whole lot, destroy it.
I was simply staggered by the huge geometric cones that just gouged up out of the earth. I've got to try and convey the thought that these are not just minute hills, they are huge and formidable ones.
Some of my paintings that I've done, I just want the viewer to feel that I've responded to the landscape. In other ones, I'm trying to recreate, in my terms, Hodges, for example. You know, and actually make a Hodges. You know, which is, you know, it's quite an exciting idea to make Hodges anew. I quite like to subvert what's in museums and in history, conventional history. I'm going to use lies. Lies actually illuminate the truth in subtle ways and get people to question what they've taken for granted, and be a bit sceptical
I wanted to get an idea that there was a huge sort of weather pattern moving briskly across the tops, but down below, and you can get some areas that are sheltered, and I wanted to have this little family nestled into this area and being quite comfortable and not really a lost tribe. I've never really liked that term. I'm thinking of calling that painting something along the lines of not lost in Fiordland.
I want to get what I feel is the spirit of the thing, and the quintessence, if you like.
I can't really define what I'm conveying because it's really in the paintings, you know.
What I'd like people to do when they see my work, that you're not looking at pictures. Hopefully recreating that experience of being there.
The immensity of the place, it's overwhelming, and it leaves a huge mark on you. And then you're standing in front of a canvas that's a couple of metres square or whatever, you know, you're never going to get it all on there. You're going to get a sense of this and that, and a couple of other things you might squeeze in on the edge, but you'll never get the whole thing.